My mother looked me straight in the eyes and said something I will never forget for the rest of my life. "You should be ashamed of yourself. You're the reason your father and I got divorced." For a moment I just stared at her. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. After everything she had put me and my brothers through, after years of abuse, lies, cheating, and alcohol, she was still trying to blame someone else. She was still trying to blame me. But before I tell you what happened next, you need to understand what growing up with her was like. I grew up in a military family. My father spent most of my childhood deployed overseas. He worked hard and sacrificed everything to provide for us. Everyone in town respected him. People saw him as a disciplined and honorable man. Unfortunately, because he was gone so often, nobody knew what happened inside our home when he wasn't there. Whenever my father left for deployment, my mother became a completely different person. At first, it was just drinking. She would start drinking in the afternoon and continue until late at night. Over time, the alcohol changed her. She became angry, bitter, and unpredictable. Some days she would ignore us completely. Other days she would scream at us for the smallest things. As the oldest child, I became her favorite target. If my younger brothers made a mistake, somehow it was my fault. If something went wrong in the house, it was my fault. If she had a bad day, it became my problem. She constantly insulted me, calling me useless, stupid, and ungrateful. At first the abuse was verbal, but eventually it became physical. I still remember nights when I would hear her stumbling through the house after drinking. My brothers and I would quietly hide in our rooms, hoping she would just go to sleep. Sometimes she did. Other times she would burst into our rooms looking for someone to yell at. There were nights when she threw objects across the room. There were nights when she slapped me for talking back. There were nights when she grabbed me by my shirt and screamed directly into my face while my younger brothers watched in fear. The worst part was that nobody believed us. Every time my father returned from deployment, she magically transformed into the perfect wife and mother. She smiled, cooked meals, and acted like everything was normal. My father was exhausted from months overseas, and he wanted to believe his family was doing well. Looking back, I don't blame him. She was incredibly good at hiding who she really was. As I got older, I started noticing other things. Strange men would come around when my father was away. Sometimes she would disappear for hours without explaining where she had been. Rumors started spreading around town, but nobody wanted to tell my father. Eventually, though, the truth became impossible to hide. One day, my father returned home unexpectedly several weeks earlier than planned. What he found changed everything. He discovered messages on her phone, evidence of multiple affairs, and enough proof to destroy any excuse she could make. At the same time, he finally began hearing stories from neighbors who had witnessed her behavior while he was away. The image of the loving wife she had created completely fell apart. Then my younger brother finally told him the truth about the abuse. I remember seeing my father's face that day. I had never seen him look so broken. It wasn't anger at first. It was disappointment. Years of sacrifice, years of hard work, years spent believing he was providing a good life for his family had been built on lies. Within a few months, divorce papers were filed. My mother acted like she was the victim. She blamed my father. She blamed stress. She blamed alcohol. She blamed everyone except herself. Even after being caught cheating and abusing her children, she somehow convinced herself that she had done nothing wrong. My father moved forward with the divorce anyway. Eventually, she moved into an apartment that my father helped pay for just to get her out of the house. You would think that would have been the end of it. It wasn't. One afternoon, while my father was at work, I was home alone. I heard the front door open and immediately felt a knot form in my stomach. There she was, my mother. She walked into the house like she still owned the place. Without saying much, she started gathering random household items. The coffee maker, kitchen appliances, small electronics, things that clearly belonged to my father. The whole situation felt ridiculous. She had already been given an apartment and financial support, but apparently that wasn't enough. I watched her move around the kitchen in silence. I knew arguing with her never ended well. Finally, she gathered everything she wanted and headed toward the front door. Then she stopped. She turned around and looked directly at me. A small smile appeared on her face, and then she said the one thing she should never have said. "I hope you know that you're the reason your father and I got divorced." The room went completely silent. Something inside me snapped. Years of fear, years of humiliation, years of protecting my brothers, years of staying quiet. All of it came rushing back at once. I looked directly at her and said, "No, Dad divorced you because you cheated on him. He divorced you because you spent years drinking instead of being a parent. He divorced you because you abused your children. He divorced you because you're the only person in this family who refuses to take responsibility for anything." The smile disappeared immediately. Her face turned bright red. I could see the rage building in her eyes. Then, just like she had done countless times before, she chose violence. She stormed toward me and hit me across the face. But this time was different. I wasn't a scared kid anymore. For the first time in my life, I defended myself. The moment it happened, the confidence disappeared from her face. She suddenly realized she no longer had control over me. She realized I wasn't going to stand there and take it anymore. I'll never forget the look of shock in her eyes. Without saying another word, I grabbed my phone and started dialing 911. The panic on her face was instant. "You wouldn't dare," she said. I looked straight at her and replied, "Watch me." A few minutes later, police officers arrived at the house. They listened to my statement. They listened to her excuses. They looked at the situation and quickly realized exactly what had happened. She had entered the property without permission. She had attempted to remove belongings that didn't belong to her. And she had assaulted me. For once, her excuses didn't work. For once, nobody believed her lies. As the officers escorted her outside, she continued yelling that everyone was against her. She continued blaming my father. She continued blaming me. Anything except herself. Watching that police car drive away felt surreal. For years, she had controlled our lives through fear. For years, she had convinced herself she could do whatever she wanted without consequences. But consequences had finally arrived. The funny thing about abusive people is that they spend so much time blaming everyone else that they never see their downfall coming. My mother spent years convincing herself that she was the victim. She blamed alcohol. She blamed my father. She blamed her children. In the end, none of those excuses mattered. The truth caught up with her, and as I stood there watching her disappear down the street in the back of a police car, I felt something I hadn't felt in a very long time. Some wounds take years to heal. Some people never change. But sometimes, justice arrives when you least expect it. Thanks for listening to this story. If you enjoyed it, subscribe to Hidden Truth Stories for more real-life drama, family secrets, and unforgettable stories. And let me know in the comments. What would you have done if you were in my situation? Until next time, stay safe. And remember, every hidden truth eventually comes to light. I'll see you in the next story.